Okay, I consider this to be a tough read, at least for me anyway. Other people read this say, no, it's not a tough read at all. But anyway, it says that merchant sold two pieces of cloth, different quality. He took in $40.25. So I kind of understand that there's $40.25 taken in, and there's two different items he sold. So I'm going to say the first item took in X dollars, and the second item would take in 40.25 minus X dollars, right? There's two items. Now, of course, he's labeling the items as being, a good quality and a poor quality. So I'm going to say this is the good one, good, and this is the poor. And when I say that, good quality, poor quality. All right, so I'm going to keep reading it, and then they say over here that there's 28 yards. Now I want to kind of summarize, and I'm reading it, and I don't know how many yards of this good stuff is, so I'm going to say I'm not going to use X again. I'll use Y now. Okay? So I'm going to start talking about the good, and the price per yard. Well, that's going to be X over Y. And this is the price per yard. And the poor, what's that going to be? Well, that's going to be 40.25 minus X over 28. Now, someone said that's the first sentence. That's all we read. A merchant sold two pieces of cloth of different quality for $40.25. The poor contained 28 yards. So I kind of wrote it down. Now, certainly when I write 28 yards for the poor one, I wrote Y for the more expensive one or the good one, and then I put price per yard down. This is typical. When you're buying something, you want to know the price per yard of it. Is that something with a problem? I don't know. But I'm going to read the next sentence. He received for the finer as many dollars a yard as there were yards in the piece. Wow. Let's write that down. Whoops, I don't need that. So what's the price per yard? It's X plus Y, right? He received for the finer as many dollars a yard. That's the price per yard as there were yards. This is an important relationship. It relates X and Y now. All right. I also want to write down that this one also you could say X equals Y squared. Another important relationship. All right. Now, whether I'm going to use it or not, I'm saying it's important because it relates X and Y together. Right. So he received for the finer as many dollars a yard, that's X over Y, as there were yards, and there's Y yards. All right. And 7 yards of the poorer. Well, let me write that down. 7 yards of the poorer. What would that cost? That would cost 40.25 minus X over 28. That's what 7 yards of the poorer one would be worth. So 7 yards of the poorer sold for much as 2 yards of the finer. Well, I'm going to write that down. 2 times. What's the price for the finer one? That's X over Y, isn't it? I'm going to claim this is an important relationship. So I want to point out we have two equations, two unknowns, and my goal here is to get an equation and one unknown. So I'm kind of looking at these. Let me kind of tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this. Excuse me if my alarm is going off. I'm looking at this. And I'm looking at this. I'm starting to realize that the equation, this equation which says 2 times X over Y can be written as 2. Well, X over Y is just Y, right? X over Y is just Y. And what do you get here? Well, I'm going to write this a little differently. This is 40.25 minus X over, well, 7 goes into 28 4 times. So I'm going to write down 8Y is 40.25 minus x. All right, another important relationship, by the way. Now, by the way, it comes from here, and I did use that to get there. I'm going to get my eraser out, erase this thing over here. And again, I have a bunch of equations with two unknowns in it, and what I want to do is make a substitution. So I want to get this thing in either terms of x's or y's. Now, maybe one day I do y's, another day I do x, but if I know x, I know y. So I'm going to write this over here. 8y equals 40.25 minus, well, what's x equal to? Well, it's equal to y squared. Where am I getting that? Right up here. Now, I got an equation on one unknown here, and let me write this down for you. I would get y squared plus 8y minus 40.25 equals 0. I'm going to complete the square. Yes, it's a little bit different than I'm doing it in the notes. And that would be 40.25. Again, you're allowed to use calculators if you want to. And how do you complete the square? You take half of the 8, which is 4, and add 16. And what do you get there? You would get y plus 4, quantity squared, would equal 56.25. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to use calculator, actually. Y plus 4. I'm not even thinking about what y is anymore. Would equal plus or minus the square root of 56.25. Y is minus 4 plus or minus the square root of 56.25. Now, by the way, I realize people can forget what they're doing, and I want to go back. I hope you understand y is the number of yards. It's got to be a positive number. So I'm going to say y is equal to minus 4 plus the root of 56.25. All right? Now, certainly, the square root of that, I'm not going to say is terrible, but what I want to do is I want to use a calculator. I'm actually opening a calculator now on a computer, and I'm going to type it in, 56.25. And I want to take the square root of that number. Wow, 7.5. Yes, I used a calculator. What's y? 3.5. So let's go back. And I know it's a long road, right? So I know y. I know this. We'll get to their question later, by the way, is 3.5 yards. Now, the question is, do you know what x is? And I'll put this down. So x is going to equal 3.5 squared. I tend to prefer to write that down as 7 over 2. It's easier for me to do, but again, your mileage may vary. 49 divided by 4, x equals, well, that goes in 12 times. 12 times 4 is 48, with the remainder 1/4. So what does that mean? X is 12.25. All right, so what's over here? This is 12.25. All right, we'll get to the question later. What's this over here? That would be 28. All right, let's go back to the question, and I want to know what the question was. Find the value of each piece. We did. So the expense of cloth, we'll check the key later, $12.25, and the less expensive cloth, but when I say the less expensive cloth, I really should say the poorer quality cloth. Maybe I should rephrase that. Best quality, and poor quality. And you spent $28 in that. All right, what do I say? Always look at the key. Now, granted, I'm kind of talking through a problem. Now, someone says, oh, this looks a little different over here. Not substantially so. It's really the same thing. And the question is, do I get the right answers, though? The more expensive cloth, maybe I shouldn't use that term, $12.25, and the less expensive cloth was $28 was spent on that. All right? So it's a tough read. I'm not saying it's not a tough read, but the key about this over here is, part of your study time is just trying to understand what you've read. And, it takes a long time sometimes. Sometimes you're going to go down the wrong road. You're going to make a mistake. You're not going to get their answers. I want to point out in Wells's time, if they did provide a solution to the problem, they gave you the solution, but they wouldn't give you the work. And what happens there for a lot of times is people will just make up any route they want to get those numbers, but it may not be a legitimate route. So please pay attention to the blue area that we're providing for you. Essentially the same thing. I know I solved it a little bit differently, but that means, each day goes by, I do things differently. All right, before I forget, I know I do it periodically. This is a draft version. What does that mean? Probably some errors involved. I shouldn't say probably. It's 100% guaranteed. My name is Ron Bannon. If you see something, say something. My email address is Bannon, that's B as in boy, the @ symbol, NNON.US. And I will do my best to address any concerns you have. Hopefully your concerns will improve the quality of the document, though. That's the whole point. Again, thank you for paying attention.